Hello everyone, my name is Shruti Sharma and in this year in the Civil Services examination I got AIR 1. Today I'm having a session regarding mainly answer writing as to how I approached answer writing in my general studies papers. I got a total of 494 marks in my general studies papers, and there were a few things that I tried to do before the examination in terms of preparing a strategy for it, preparing some content for it. So I'm going to try to share what I did during this time. As to how this session is going to be structured, firstly I'll talk about certain basic things that you can apply in all 4 papers, and then we're going to go paper wise. Now we come to GS2. GS2 comprises 3 things. First is polity. Second is governance issues, and third is IR. Right? For polity, what you can do, again I'm going to talk about in terms of intro, body, conclusion. Make sure that you use a lot of articles. Whatever you've read, say for example there's a question about elections. You can answer the question directly also, whatever it is, but it will make the answer better if you start by writing, that the Election Commission is one of, say, the 4 bulwarks. The Election Commission, under bracket Article 324, is one of the 4 bulwarks of the Constitution, etc., etc., etc. Or the Supreme Court, under, say, part this of the Constitution, articles this and this, is one of the 4 bulwarks of the Constitution, something like that, right? So make sure that you use parts of the Constitution, articles of the Constitution, so that you seem like a student of polity and not just a lay person. So try to use articles, try to use committees, so especially in the way forward. So conclusion may, especially in polity, economy, all of these GS2 and GS3, in conclusion it's always good to have a way forward, because you're not only here to talk about problems in the system but also solutions to the system. So even if it's not asked, make sure that you have certain solutions, and this way forward you can write your own opinions or own suggestions, but it's always better if you write something which is backed by a committee or some government report or something. So try to use committees in your way forward. Again, try to pick up these things from, say, Lakshmikant. There are things which are already there in terms of, say, recommendations of Punchi Committee, Sarkaria Committee, any other monthly compilation you're seeing. Try to go through second ARC key things for ethics and for GS2 as well. So committees is something that you can do. Go through the 17 SDG goals as well. And these SDG goals, you can use anywhere else. Right? You can use these SDG goals in GS2, you can use it in GS3, you can use it in ethics, you can use it in your essay as well. Make sure that you remember all of them and use it wherever it's necessary. It's often a really nice conclusion to have, even if you can't think of anything. So if you're talking about, say, infrastructure also, so something like sustainable infrastructure, or say SDG 13, climate justice, or sustainable cities, I think, is SDG 11. So these are things that if you're talking about urbanization, if you talk about SDG 11, it's something that will be nice. SDG 5 for gender justice and so on. So these are things that you can use in the introduction, you can use in the conclusion. In terms of the body of a polity answer, I think there are certain headings you can make. So after this introduction, whatever body you have, there are certain headings that I use that you can also use to think in. So something in terms of, say, problems. If you're having problems of a certain issue, what are the problems or solutions, whatever it is? The question is legal issues, or the legal part of it, the constitutional part of it, the institutional issues that are there. So these are certain headings in which you can use to think and therefore structure your answer better, and it gives the examiner also more clarity and more coherence in the answer. Right, so say for example, this time there was this question: to what extent GS2 2021, to what extent in your view the Parliament is able to ensure accountability of the executive in India, right? So how can you start this question in introduction? To what extent in your view the Parliament is able to ensure accountability in the executive in India? Starting, you can just write about how the constitution makers envisaged India as a parliamentary form of government in which there are checks and balances. These checks and balances you can sort of denote by making this in terms of, say, the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary, right? And then you can just say check, check, or whatever. This itself sort of, even this shows that this is your, and try to box. This had something people told me to box whatever any diagrams or anything that I was making, right? So you draw this sort of thing where the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary are putting checks on each other, and this is something that this thing mentioned. Or I remember whenever there was a question on checks and balances, I used Montesquieu's Spirit of the Laws, where he talks about checks and balances in a democracy. So these are certain things that you can use in introduction. Then to what extent, in your view, the parliament is able to ensure accountability of the executive unit? So the first part of the question, this is something they've done. First part of the question will be, the parliament does hold is able to ensure accountability through various measures. So these various measures can be again divided into various ways. So say the measures that have been provided to them in terms of, say, you can talk about the motions, no confidence motion, then other R's like question R, this. So there are various ways, and you can talk about, then you can talk about, say, parliamentary committees, this, that. And then, so there are various points. These are a few that I can remember right now. But firstly, talk about one side of the question. Then the question is to what extent. So then go to the other part that, yet it has not been able to properly sort of do this. Why? Because of ABC reasons. Here, try to give examples. So, for example, a certain percentage of the bills have only gone to the parliamentary committees. This is something which has happened. The issue of having a large majority in the government. So, the parliament is majorly comprised of the executive only. So, things like that. So, try to so at least if there are two parts of the question, make sure that you have at least 5 points here, at least 4 to 5 points there as well, and write in one line only if you can do that, and if you can make it legible and coherent. If you're writing in points, if you're writing in paragraphs, that is also fine if that works by you, right? So 5 points here, other part of the question 5 points there, and then end with a conclusion in terms of certain suggestions that have been made by certain committees, say second ARC, say the NCRWC, National Committee to do that, or certain NGOs have made certain recommendations that all bills should compulsorily go to the parliament to uphold the spirit of democracy. So with certain positive words like spirit of democracy and committee recommendations, you can end this answer. Right, so this is for polity, some things you can do. Then again, governance, I would like to say that go back to whatever I had said for social issues. Make sure that you have a certain amount of notes prepared for all of this. My personal strategy was to also use a lot of examples. So say Odisha ka Mo Sarkar initiative, for education, the Delhi school initiative, which are there, happiness curriculum, which can be a new thing. I also use certain examples of other countries, so Netherlands and say Japanese, Chi Tokutai is something that they follow in terms of maintaining a balance in children's education. So anything that you pick up from the newspaper, have a ready collection of that in various areas. So governance is certain things. NGOs, SHGs, make sure that you have examples of, say, an environmental NGO which is doing good work, or SHG as well, or say in the area of political awareness. Have these examples so that you can pepper your answers with them, because these are questions that come every year. SHGs, NGOs, role of civil services in a democracy. Have certain templates ready for say a role of civil services in a democracy, or if a question on civil services. I usually started with, say, Sardar Patel and his quote on how it is the steel frame of India. So have certain things ready so that you don't have to think too much in the final paper, right? So this was on governance. Third is IR, right? IR, there are again, I would say, usually questions that are asked on neighboring countries. This time I think there was this question on AUKUS, so questions on, say, regional organizations. So if whatever is there in the news recently, make sure that a couple of regional or world organizations, say the WHO, WTO, figure out what its main issues are, problems are, how to solve them, what its solutions are, and a way forward. So have certain templates ready of neighboring countries as well. Say for example, there were certain things in, say, China or US and the neighborhood policy. These are things I worked on already. You can, if you're using, say, any yearly compilations, read notes on that. Figure out something, some introduction that you can start having for those. Say, for example, Nepal, I remember quotes like Roti Beti Ka Rishta is something that I used. Hindi Chini, so that the difference and the shift from, say, where Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai was used, the Mamallapuram summit. Use these keywords in terms of having a positive outlook in the future. And so I think the conclusion should be something, especially in IR, to be a little positive, forward-looking, and talking about cooperation and using and putting India at the central focal point of the world in terms of the new world order. So remember, like in IR, try to have a positive India-centric view at the end. Okay, so this is something that I did in terms of an IR answer, which is usually about cooperation and relations between two countries. With respect to that, there are certain headings in which I used to think of. So these things that you can do before in terms of, say, defense or trade and economic ties, or even before that, historical ties. So if you're opening something, if you're talking about relations between two countries, don't just talk about one or two things that have happened in the future. To have more dimensions, think along these lines in terms of historical lines, defense-based lines, trade or economic ties, then cultural ties, then even in a new sense, science and technology based ties, or say newer technology which is happening, then environmental sort of relations that are there between these countries. So open IR questions on all these different levels and have sort of good tags or beginnings at the end. So moving from an Asia of conflict to an Asia of cooperation is something that you could use, and I think I did use because it was used in one of the summits that happened. I can't remember. So whatever, keep an eye on whatever is happening in the news, and one or two taglines which are usually there based on the summit, say the Glasgow summit, if something was there. One or two taglines, just remember, so that you can use in the introductions and conclusions. Keep writing, keep collecting all of these things if you're, say, not writing the mains right now and plan to do it in the future. Okay, so forward-looking conclusions for this was GS2. Now we come to GS3.